Now let me show you a few tips and tricks to help you get the best pricing and terms from your supplier. Alright, so this is just a quick video on how to get the best pricing and terms from your supplier. And all we're really going to do is I'm going to just show you some little tips and tricks that I use that really help get the best pricing, not only from right from the beginning of your relationship with your supplier, but also as you develop a relationship over time. So to start off with, here's a few general guidelines. So the first thing is you want to be professional. Now you've heard me say this before and I'll probably say it again. It's so very, very important that you're professional with all your communication. Don't just, get lazy. You need to be very clear and concise. Pay attention to spelling. Pay attention to grammar. Don't discount the fact that a lot of suppliers, if you're contacting people in different countries from you, if their language skills aren't up to the same as yours, don't discount that and get sloppy. Next, don't dive straight into the minimum order quantity or the MOQ. Don't let that be the opener for your conversation. That information will come to the surface over time, over the next corresponding emails or Skype conversations you might have with them. And the main reason you want to do that, or you want to avoid doing that, is simply because you don't want them to think that you're just a small fish, you're just looking to get 50 or 100 in small time. They're going to move on to perhaps bigger fish or better prospects. So don't jump straight into MOQ right away. And then don't be unreasonable with your terms right off the bat either. Now, I'm not saying you can't play hardball at some point with some suppliers and really negotiate. But what I'm saying is if you've got two suppliers and one's got an MOQ of 5,000, another one's got an MOQ of 100, and you want to get 50 items, for example, if you're starting with the guy with 5,000 MOQ, you've got a long ways to negotiate. And they're probably not going to pay too much attention to you if you're really cutting it down. So try to be a bit more reasonable on things like MOQ, things like price. Don't go straight for the throat right away. Try and be a little bit more flexible. And understand that flexibility typically will pay off as you establish yourself and you prove that you're a great customer and they prove to you that they're a great supplier. Those things are always negotiable over time. And then finally, you want to establish your price tiers right away. And what that does is, first of all, it lets them know, or your supplier know, that you're not focused on the MOQ, you're not focused on the absolute minimum amount, and you're thinking ahead. You're thinking ahead to where your price breaks are. You want to know that information. I mean, that's good information to have anyways, but just from an initial impression that you can give to your supplier, you're thinking big and you're not just going to piddle around and waste their time. Now, a really effective technique is to create a first order as a test order, or to speak about your first order as being a test order. Now, you can mention something like this in your initial contact with a supplier or in a follow-up with a supplier. But it actually does a couple of really great things. First of all, it allows you to potentially get a much smaller order up front. If you say you're creating a test order because you want to test the market with a new product or something, that's really powerful, and it allows you to get that smaller upfront order. But on the other hand, it's just really a smart thing to do anyways, because if you think about it, no matter where you're at when you're a business and you're a year down the road and maybe you've got multiple products going, you're not going to just jump into a brand new product and just order 10,000 of them and throw them in some packaging and shoot them off to Amazon most likely. You're probably going to want to test the market. You're going to want to test your packaging. Who knows, there could be a defect with that item. Nobody's just going to go out there sight unseen and just order a boatload of them and hope for the best. I mean, I certainly hope you're not doing it. So it's a great idea anyways. And if you can get your supplier to agree on your first order to make it a test order so you can test your market and then allude to some larger orders in behind, it's just a fantastic way to get started. Now, there's a couple of variations on this that I'd like to chat about. So one of the other things you can do with this sort of test order strategy play is you can get a low upfront test order, or you can potentially get or negotiate for a low upfront test order with an agreement in place for the next order. And by that I mean, you just say, your first order is going to be a low MOQ. Let's say it's going to be 200 units or 100 units, whatever it is, on test your order. But you agree that next order will be 500 or 250 or 1,000 or whatever number range you're playing in. So the next thing you might potentially be able to do is agree to a certain order size, but to have the manufacturing of that product spread out over a certain time period. So you and the supplier might be able to come to an agreement. Let's say they're not willing to go lower than 1,000. You only want 200 to start. You can say, look, I'll take the 1,000 pricing, and you draw up some type of an agreement where they make the rest of those units over a certain period of time, like over the next 6 months or 3 months or whatever's appropriate for your situation. Or similarly, you could potentially agree to a particular order size, have the manufacturers store it, and sometimes they can do that for you, then ship it out in portions over time. Now, something else I want you to recognize here is this doesn't necessarily have to be for your first order. I mean, you might be dealing with a supplier for 3 months or 6 months or a year, and also enact some of these types of agreements to really help you out. So, for example, in this last example, let's say their minimum order quantity, or not even their minimum order quantity, let's just say their price tier, they've got a big price break at 5,000 units, and you've built yourself up, and now you're ordering 1,000 at a time, for example. If that next price break is a big one, you might be able to say, hey, you know what, I'm going to agree to that. I'm going to pay for that up front and get that big price break, and then just ship it out in portions to keep a bit more cash flow, so you don't have to put all the money up for shipping right away. So these are just some of the kind of ideas you can play with. Some of them are more appropriate right up front. Others, you can basically enact at any time that can really help you out and come to some better pricing terms with your supplier. So something I just want to add in is creating that first email to contact your supplier. Now, I know if you're anything like me, you're kind of nervous when you're first doing it. You don't really know what to say. You're not sure what the response is going to be. But don't worry about it. It doesn't have to be anything too detailed or too crazy. It's really quite a simple email you can do. And if you remember when we were in the Alibaba sourcing video, when we were comparing suppliers, I don't blanket email different suppliers. I tend to do one at a time, and I tailor make it just slightly. Maybe I'll talk about a specific feature of their product or something that differentiates them, and I get a much higher response rate. So something, here's an example of an email I might send initially to a supplier. So you might say something like, hello, my name is Shane Oglow, and I'm contacting you on behalf of my company. We're currently looking to expand our product range, and we're interested in your spatula sets. And then here's where you could possibly mention some detail about the product you're looking at that might differentiate itself from other products. The length of the handle, colors, those types of things. It can be really anything, or better if it's something you're actually interested in knowing. You could then go on to say something like, this is a new market for us, and we like the opportunity to put this product through a customer test phase before aggressively expanding. We require an order of 200 units to complete this test. We look forward to hearing back from you at your earliest convenience. Thank you, and your name. And that's really it. It can be that simple and that basic, just sort of a few sentences to get the ball rolling. And as I've mentioned before, oftentimes in that conversation will sort of evolve over to an IM or an instant messaging system like Skype, Viber, whatever they happen to be using. And obviously that was just sort of off the top of my head, but you get the basic idea. And you might want to structure it a little bit differently depending on the type of supplier you're dealing with or the type of product you're dealing with. So just to sum up, having that really solid professional relationship can really pay off in so many ways over time. And what you'll find is not only will they start to aggressively look to you for more business, and they're going to start, they may or may not volunteer price breaks, but they'll be open to that if they don't, and don't be surprised if they do. But as your supplier understands your brand, a lot of times they're going to have their own ideas for your product, maybe modifications, maybe add-on products, maybe new products they think would be a really good fit for your expansion. And I know plenty of sellers on Amazon who have really great relationships with their suppliers, where they're visiting their factory all the time, whether it's US based or Chinese based, where they fly back and forth. And it really is a partnership. And I think if you view it from that point at the very beginning, it's, you're going to develop a partnership. I think you can have a really long and fruitful relationship.